Hey, welcome. Let me ask you something. Have you ever aimed for something absolutely massive, something huge, and then felt like a total failure because you didn't quite stick the landing? Well, today, we're going to look at a powerful piece of ancient wisdom that can completely reframe that feeling. It might just turn your biggest failures into your greatest assets.
So, what you just read, that's Chorale 596. Think of it as an ancient philosophical blueprint for ambition. And what it's saying is pretty radical. It suggests the real value isn't just in hitting the target, but in how high you aim in the first place. That's a powerful idea to hold on to, right? Especially when you're chasing something big. And to really see how this plays out, we're going to explore it through the story of an architect with a seemingly impossible dream.
All right, let's dive into our story. It begins in Detroit with an architect named Elias Thorne. Picture this. He's standing in front of a chain link fence, and he's just staring at what, to be honest, most people would just call a wasteland, a whole city block of nothing but cracked concrete and crumbling ruins. See, that's the thing. Where everyone else saw urban decay, a problem to just bulldoze and forget, Elias saw a canvas. He had this vision for this forgotten piece of land, a totally revolutionary idea he called the Aether Project. And when I say his dream was audacious, I mean it was out there. He saw something no one else could possibly imagine, a complete reimagining of what was possible for that space, and more importantly, for the people who lived all around it. I mean, just look at the sheer scale of the ambition here. It is incredible. The city council, they wanted something practical, a parking garage, maybe a small grocery store. But Elias proposed the Aether Project. We're talking a self-sustaining vertical farm with soaring towers of solar glass and hydroponics designed to completely wipe out a food desert. It wasn't even in the same universe as what they were thinking. And his entire philosophy, his whole reason for being, was captured in what he told his partner. He said, if I aim for something practical and safe for the ceiling, I'm just going to end up hitting the floor. But if I aim for the impossible, if I aim for the moon, well, maybe I'll fall short, but at least I might land on the roof. And for half a year, Elias poured every single thing he had into this project. We're talking his savings, his energy, his reputation. He absolutely refused to compromise because he insisted that this community deserved the absolute best. And his guiding principle? It was pulled straight from that chorale we started with. Keep all thoughts high. But you know how it goes. Even the grandest, most beautiful dreams have to contend with gravity. And for the Aether Project, the heavy weight of reality was about to come crashing down hard. The setbacks were absolutely brutal, and they just kept coming, one after another. First, a recession hits the economy. Then, his two main investors get cold feet and they pull out completely. And then, the final blow. The city's zoning commission denied the height variance he needed for his vertical farm. Just like that, the dream was over. The funding that was left in the wreckage? It was only enough to cover about 20% of his original magnificent vision, just a fifth of what he had promised the world. And in his own mind, Elias was just devastated. He had promised a cathedral of the future, and now he felt like he was delivering a renovated warehouse. And maybe that feeling is familiar to you. That crushing weight when the gap between your vision and the reality feels like a canyon. To him, it wasn't a setback. It was a complete and utter failure. Okay, so let's jump to the groundbreaking ceremony for this new, scaled-down project. This is where things take a really fascinating twist. Elias is just standing there in the mud, feeling like a total fraud, when something completely unexpected happens. A car pulls up, and out steps Marcus Sterling. I mean, the most famous urban planner in the country, a guy Elias had idolized his entire career. And Sterling walks right up to Elias. Elias starts to explain that, he's looking at a failure, but Sterling just stops him. He reveals that the only reason the city approved any funding for this project at all was because Elias had demanded a miracle. His grand vision had basically shamed them into doing something meaningful, instead of just slapping down another parking lot. And then Sterling offers a perspective that changes everything. He looks at what's being built and tells them this failure is superior to what most other people call a success. And why? Because by aiming for the impossible, the 20% that Elias did manage to build was infused with a higher standard, a higher quality and vision than any practical project would have ever been. And in that one moment, Elias finally gets it. The truth hits him. He hadn't reached the stars, no. But by reaching for them, he had lifted the entire neighborhood out of the dirt.
The community wasn't disappointed in him. They were proud that someone had thought they were worth a miracle. The real victory wasn't the building itself. The victory was the new standard of excellence he had established for everyone. So, let's bring this all home. Let's connect this powerful story directly back to that ancient blueprint we started with, and you'll see just how perfectly Elias's journey illustrates its wisdom. See, the corral really has three parts. First, you have the high thought, right? For Elias, that was his ridiculously audacious Aether project. Second, you have the failure, which was his funding collapsing and the project getting scaled down. And third, you have the honor. And that honor came not from building the big tower, but from earning respect and raising the standard for an entire community. So the real takeaway from this ancient wisdom is pretty profound. It's not just about whether you achieve your specific exact goal. The real honor is found in the height of your aim. The very act of aiming impossibly high almost guarantees a worthy outcome, because that pursuit changes you, and it changes the world around you in the process. And this leaves us with a question that really we should all ask ourselves. What is your Aether project? What is that impossible, magnificent, maybe even crazy goal you're aiming for? The one that, even if you fall short, even in what the world might call failure, will leave you and everyone around you standing on much higher ground.